Hello and welcome to Stupid Ancient History with Midgley
and Taylor and our expert, non-expert and special guest James, Lord High Commander of the Science Cupboard, first of his name and knower of nothing.
Hello.
As always, we're wearing togas. We are deep in mourning for the death of Diana Rigg. And coincidentally today we're looking at the death of Romulus. Previously on Stupid Ancient History, we've been looking at the very earliest history of Rome under Romulus.
From its fantastical founding after he and his brother were saved by a she-wolf.
Or a prostitute.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And how Romulus, after attracting all the local criminals and runaways to his new city, solved the teeny tiny problem of having no women.
By nicking them, the Sabines specifically.
It's not like the best start, is it?
Yeah, a bit rude.
It is a bit rude.
And all in amongst that, Romulus, he also had time to establish a complex and long-standing systems of governance, military structure, and social hierarchy.
So he didn't do a lot then, did he, really?
Not a lot.
Not much.
Needs to pull his finger out of it. So like you said, he's done a lot. He's been busy.
He's done some.
He's he has done something. I'll be kind. Since it's called the death of Romulus, is there anything much for him to accomplish before he actually dies?
Never happy, James. Never satisfied.
Well, we're talking about him however many thousand years later. I want great things from him.
Well, I mean, there was a war or two.
Who did he go to fight with? More disgruntled people whose women he stole.
He nicked children this time. He
No,
didn't
he did
really.
not.
Okay. I was about to say, I was up for believing that.
Do not write that on any exam that Romulus went round nicking kids.
So, not quite. There's just two more of the local tribes, and they felt a little bit concerned about the growing power of Rome, and they tried to basically have a go.
I already imagine that didn't go well.
No.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, but to be fair, rather than just doing what he's done previously, rocked up and nicked all the lands, they established peace treaties with them, which lasted for apparently 100 years.
Oh, that's all right.
And it's also worth pointing out Romulus became the sole ruler of Rome. So he's in effect like the king of Rome now.
Because he was sharing rule with the Crusties. I can't remember the names.
The Sabines.
The Sabines.
Oh no, one of the other ones were called what were they called?
Crustaminis.
The Crusties. That's what I
there you
call
go.
it. Yeah, so he was sharing rule with the Sabine king.
Yeah.
What happened then? How come he became the sole ruler?
Well, Romulus and Tatius, like you say, were sharing power until accidentally, after a riot, Tatius was killed in the riot.
He started a riot and it killed him.
How accidental is this riot and death?
Pretty accidental.
Yeah.
Basically, he insulted some ambassadors, people kicked off, there was a riot, he died in it.
Okay.
It's his own fault, really.
I was expecting that to be like a plotted riot Romulus did.
No, he just said
A
the
lack
wrong
of-
thing to the wrong people, got stomped.
Just no tact.
Lack of common sense. Should have kept his mouth shut.
So anyway, after the death of Tatius, Livy says that the actions of Romulus and the changes he brought around to Rome meant that they existed peacefully for another 40 years.
What was the life expectancy at this point in time?
Well, yeah, I mean, the problem with any of these days is it's entirely speculative. Another 40 years would make him pretty old for, like you said, people at this time had a lot of things that would kill him.
Yeah, unless he accomplished all the other things by the time he was 15.
Yeah, which he probably did.
Yeah, do we have any idea how old he was when he became the sole king of Rome?
No.
An undetermined age.
We don't even know if he existed. So
Fair enough.
Dates are pretty pointless.
Can you imagine him going around on a Zimmer frame?
Oh, if he's king, I'd have someone carry me if I were king. So he did all this important stuff.
Yep.
Ruled for another 40 years.
Of course.
Yes, obviously. Died of old age.
Well, no, sorry, Fred, no.
Is it more interesting than that?
Yeah, but I'm also afraid that Livy gives us two different versions of events.
Please tell me it's like one sensible, one ridiculous.
Kind of.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what's the... Give me one.
Go on then, Livy.
So it's Livy at 1.16. So it says then, when he held a meeting on the flat ground near the Caprian marsh to inspect the army. Suddenly there was a storm with huge thunderclaps, and a thick cloud covered the king, so that no one could see him. From then on, Romulus was no longer on Earth.
You
It's
disappeared.
like a magic trick.
Yeah.
He's gone.
No, I mean, the idea, the explanation ultimately is because Romulus was the de facto son of Mars.
Okay.
After Mars and his mum had,
Relations.
relations. That because he was so great, Romulus got taken up into this cloud and became a god, and he becomes the god Quirinus, the god of Rome.
Okay.
Which
So
is
they
nice.
had their own god.
They've got their own god, and it's Romulus because he was awesome.
Okay.
Perfectly believable.
Yes. So he's been evaporated into a cloud, basically.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So that was version 1.
Yep.
Is version 2 just as ridiculous?
Well, it's a little more grim.
Oh.
So Livy says, I believe that there are also people who say quietly that the senators tore the king apart with their hands, because even though this rumour is quite unclear, it still leaked out. As did he. I assume if he was torn apart.
Wow.
They didn't just kill him, they tore him to pieces with their bare hands.
Do we know what he did to annoy them to the point where they ripped him to shreds?
Something pretty bad, I'm guessing. Strutted around saying, I'm the son of a god. And like, hey, watch this, mate.
I think, I wonder where this is where Rome's kind of hang up about kings ultimately comes from.
Because they ripped one to pieces.
And this is the first kind of thing about them getting rid of a king because he's become too big for his boots.
So their first one they got rid of.
Yeah, it was so successful.
Wonder why they had a problem with him.
Cheers for establishing all this stuff, mate, but while you're here... yeah, we don't know. I mean, we really don't know. The problem we have here is that this version is actually probably even less likely than the first one.
Him turning into a cloud.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I kind of went off then,
You
didn't
did. You were thinking about ripping him to pieces.
Yeah. So Livy himself says that it's a rumour, but he thought that he had to record it anyway. So that obviously raises a few questions, doesn't it? He's probably thinking it makes his work more reliable, I can only assume, with putting everything down.
Well, he's done
But
it
then-
before, hasn't he? Every time he's
Yeah.
come across something implausible, he's gone, oh, there's actually a more plausible story. But here he's like, I heard a rumour of a possibility of a
Yeah.
more plausible story. Let's just stick that in.
Is there an asterisk on the turning into a cloud story?
No,
That's just written as fact.
that's just, this is what we're told.
And then the man being ripped to shreds is the
"Oh,
ridiculous
I heard
rumour.
this rumour, yeah.
Right, okay.
I know
Um,
it's a bit strange.
I know. There's also, I mean, there's obviously this passing comparison to the death of Augustus's adoptive father, Julius Caesar, who not ripped to pieces by the Senate, but
How many
Stabby,
times was
stabby.
he stabbed?
hacked to pieces by the Senate. And again,
40 something times, I
it
think.
was more than one.
Yeah, it was
let's
a lot.
leave it at that. But again, it's like Romulus is portrayed as a good king, so it's almost saying even good people, Julius Caesar, can also be poorly done by to the Senate, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
So,
So it's almost like he's been told to put it in to go, just mention that, Senate are bad, they rip people to pieces, they stab people to pieces.
and we've talked in the past about how a lot of this ties into the Augustus's
Yeah.
narrative. Did he try and kind of vilify the Senate to make himself seem grander as an emperor, or?
Not really vilify, just
not
kind of
really.
scuttle under a carpet.
Yeah,
Okay.
it kind of, Augustus is very good at kind of taking power away from the Senate, but still
Looking like the good guy.
putting forward this illusion that the Senate have still got power.
Okay.
So a lot of historians modern historians refer to Augustus's rule as being this facade of a republic, or like a veiled monarchy,
Okay.
because ultimately he's got all the power, but he still makes other people think that they've got control. He's really good at playing people and manipulating people, ultimately, isn't he? That's what he's saying.
Yeah, and he's definitely done a number on Helen.
So of the two, we're assuming the more reliable story is he became a god.
Absolutely, why not? I mean, this is again one of the points we should, as we've been doing, flag up with the problem with Livy's sources in that he doesn't have any real credible evidence to back this up with. but also this ongoing issue of myth and reality.
Yeah, and the myth aspect is clearly obvious, isn't it? In this idea of a storm kind of whisking Romulus off the planet and taking him away.
Yeah, and Livy himself, when he's writing, he still has some awe for this character he's writing about, Romulus. So he's not quite deifying him, but he's going, if this is true, this guy was pretty awesome, because he says,
"This is what Romulus achieved while he was king at home and at war, and all of it shows that he was descended from a god and deserved to be a god after he died."
So,
Okay.
there's a fair bit of praise going on
Yeah.
there. But again, the problem we find is that when he does try to find a more sensible alternative, like with the she-wolf and all these, he can't find anything to go with it, partly because this myth is so established. You know, so he has to just plop this version in about the senator.
But there's also, like we've said before, isn't it? This is really good PR, and if we think this is really good PR for Augustus, because what he's basically saying is rulers of Rome are descended from gods. So he's saying that Augustus is inadvertently kind of descended from a god.
Yeah.
As the rightful ruler of
As
Rome.
the rightful ruler of Rome.
Yeah, because it was Levy as well, wasn't it? I was wrote about this. Destined.
Oh, that was Virgil.
Virgil
saying,
in
yeah,
the
the best
Aeneid.
of them all will be Augustus.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, all right, mate, jog on.
But there's also the fact that after Julius Caesar's died or murdered, he is also named as a god
Yeah.
by Augustus.
And then, it is worth pointing out that when emperors die, certainly in the early stages of the imperial room, they then become gods as well.
Yeah.
Is it?
There's a lot of gods knocking
I was going to say,
about.
is this a common thing, or is it just they do it to themselves because they can?
It's just the way they do it.
Who's
Yeah.
going to argue with them?
Well, yeah. If you argue with them, you're one of these bad senators who rips good people to pieces.
But it's really good for Augustus, because ultimately what it means is if he's related to Romulus far away, but then Julius Caesar is an actual relation, he's a blood relation. So you've got that link. So he can be like, I am actually related to a god.
So I'm already related to one. I become one eventually.
Yeah.
Like top trumps.
Yeah, he's pretty good. So, yeah, what do we think actually happened with all this nonsense?
Well, we just think he died. Basically.
That's it. That's
He
all. That's
died,
all the
yeah.
concrete thing you know.
Yeah, we know he popped it.
We're not even sure he
At
died.
some point.
Well, he may not have been
have
born.
existed,
Well,
so,
yeah.
he died.
So
Probably.
basically, you know nothing.
Is that
We
not
know
clear?
as much as the sources tell us, James, and that's a damn sight more than you know sometimes. So I would shut your pie hole.
Wow! Don't bring pie into this.
Shots fired.
So they were quite a kind of pious people, weren't they,
Yeah.
the Romans? So they most likely genuinely believed Romulus had just nipped off to be a god for a while.
Yeah.
Who was king after him? That's a bit of a tough act to follow.
Well, yeah, I mean, it absolutely is, unless they're going around going, anyone else a son of a god?
Yeah.
No.
Although if he got ripped to pieces, that's quite an easy fact to follow.
Yeah. But, I mean, the other thing is, it seems that Romulus, if he did have any children, and there's no real suggestion that he did or didn't, if he did, he certainly didn't expect them to become king after him.
Okay.
So even though Rome was ruled as a monarchy in the early days, it seems it wasn't going to be a hereditary monarchy.
Okay. Was that how it was done at the time in like Italy or around the world, or was it?
No,
just-
it seems quite unusual, just that maybe they thought the qualification of who your dad is
It's not the best
not
benchmark.
the best qualification, no.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they entered into a process. So the Romans and the Senate entered into this process called an interregnum, which was where they decided basically who was going to be king.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like a transition period. So the
Okay.
king's dead. Oh no, we need something new now. So it's a transition period where the Senate and the people basically put everyone's name in a hat and decide who's going to be the next king.
Okay. So is that actually how they did it, or
Well,
did you give a bit of a speech to say
Yeah, they didn't just do it. Did do.
There are worse ways to
There
pick a
are.
leader.
Rock, paper, scissors. You're down.
Rock, paper, torn to shreds by the Senate. No, it's a little bit more complicated than that. But luckily, Livy has an idea what he says.
So he says the problem was not over which person should be king, as nobody really stood out from the new population.
They were
all
all rubbish.
It was to do with which tribe the king should come from. The Sabines wanted one of them to be king, since after the death of Tatius, they hadn't been part of ruling, and they were losing power in their supposedly equal society. But the original Romans didn't want a foreign king.
The classed as foreign even though they're just down the road.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also they married their women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was the whole point where the women stopped the fight. They're like, look, we're all basically the same now.
Shut up,
You've got
hippies.
children and
Grandkids
and grandkids and
mortgages.
sons-in-law and stuff. We're all the same.
Yeah.
Well, apparently not when you're picking a king.
No. And also, I mean, the Sabines are moaning that they weren't in power since their king died.
That was at least 40 years ago.
And there's a reason he died. He
Stop.
caused a riot that killed him. So maybe they are not necessarily the best candidates. But yeah, so this is the start of how it's working. No one can decide who should be king. Because they're all rubbish, apparently.
Yeah. Alleged no one stood out.
No, they're all just... what about him?
Average.
What about that
Bit
guy?
beige, really.
Beige. They're all lepidus.
They are all lepidus.
So none of these people stood out. They were
No.
all a bit
Boring.
rubbish. Did they never just go, right, Romulus's kids can be king? This just seems like too much hassle for me.
No, apparently not. I mean, even though the deadlock is less than ideal, I mean, more so because the Romans are now worried that without any substantive leader, all of these other tribes and surrounding communities that they've had at least a bit of a scrap
Yes.
with, would go, oh, hang on, now is a good time to attack. They can't decide on their own leaders. Let's go and sort them out.
I'd also be worried about people within my own country as well. If most of the, like you had turned around to the rest of the population and gone, no, like we don't want you to be king. Even though we married your women, you could have a riot or uproar coming from within the country itself, couldn't you?
It could all go horribly, horribly wrong. But luckily they come up with a genius solution.
So the 100 senators split the rule between them by making groups of 10 and choosing one from each of these groups who would be in charge. 10 had power, but only one had the symbols of power and the lictors. Each was in charge for 5 days, and it went around between all of them for 1 year. That sounds confusing.
That sounds exhausting.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. So you're king for 5 days, and then you introduce some laws.
But say, what if I introduce like a civil policy? We're going to build some roads, and then you take over.
Taylor takes over and goes,
No.
You know what
No.
you said? No.
No roads.
And then I get elected, and then roads. And then, yes, it's a
Nothing would get done, would it?
No, it's completely exhausting. There's going to be no stability for 5 days.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. And clearly it wasn't working for the Romans either, because Livy chips in that they said...
Then the people complained that they now had 100 masters instead of just one.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Make your mind up, for goodness sake!
So yeah, it seems no one was happy with this 100 king situation.
I don't know why. I mean, it seems perfectly sensible.
Did they sort it out?
Well, yeah. I mean, it seems effectively that the Senate handed over the choice of who should be king to the people.
Oh, okay.
Sounds nice.
Is this the Greek influence coming through?
Not quite,
Okay.
because it's not as clear cut as that.
But they made sure that they still had the final say, as the Senate had to agree on the choice.
Right, so you have a vote, but we have to agree with
Yeah.
who you
Yeah.
pick.
Definitely.
It's more a case of you can vote for one of these people. No
Right.
plebs in the government. No. You can vote for one of the people we basically select, and if we don't like who you've chosen, we're going to vote it down.
Okay.
So that's the system they adopt.
That seems like a good way to start another riot, but
Yeah?
It's still better than having a new
No
king
one.
every day.
5
Oh, yeah.
minutes.
So as we've sort of obviously alluded throughout this, because I mean, how you could take this as
Gospel.
gospel fact,
Does-
it's going to be...
we
Stupid.
talk about a lot of ridiculous stuff. There was a
Don't know what you mean.
That was a lot condensed into a very short amount of time.
That was a lot of schlock in one little extract. I mean, but it's this problem of myth and reality, and again, we're back to the same old problems. So we've got problems with Livy's sources, the fact that there isn't really any document evidence from that time. You've got a bit of a rock that they dug up in the Lapis Niger. Also, things like Romulus doesn't really start to appear in written Roman histories till about the 3rd, 4th century BC. So no one really starts writing about it until you get to people like Piso, Pictor and Mesa, who at best are amateur hacks.
Okay.
And they start writing about Romulus more about the foundation myth and the mythology, and it becomes so popular that, again, if you think poor old Livy, if he's going to write a book saying, you know, all that thing that you all believed, turns out it's not true, he's not going to go down too well.
Yeah.
So he's fighting against the lack of poor sources and the popularity of this foundation myth, whilst trying to actually write an actual history. So he can't.
Do any other like big cities or civilizations from that time have these grandiose like foundation stories?
Oh God, yeah, they all do.
So this is essentially like, right, we used to be goat herders. That's not sexy enough.
Let's have something cool instead. So the Athenians have, rather than going for, we're an exciting, we're a handily placed fishing port, they have the story about Athena and Poseidon deciding who's going to have the new city, and Athena gives them an olive tree and they go, sick, we'll have that.
Yeah.
They've all got these little foundation myths, so why wouldn't Rome? It was an established thing to do.
You've also got to think about Augustus, haven't you? Which we've talked about, mentioned before anyway. But
Helen just can't get enough.
I know. But Livy is basically also writing for Augustus. So he's not going to write anything that doesn't fit in with the propaganda message that Augustus is trying to put across.
Foundation under Romulus, refounding.
And drawing the parallels between the two, and this thing about how he dies and him becoming a god and all this kind of stuff. There are really strong parallels.
You'd have to be a pretty thick Roman to not spot them.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I can't remember if we've asked this. Like, you say Livy's writing like for Augustus. Is he actually like his patron historian, or
it's not that formal? It's more of a kind of nice book you're writing there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Be a shame if someone's to break your kneecaps while
we know that we know.
Did he have that level of influence on any other historians, or is this the only one?
Augustus
really?
pretty much will have had that level of influence over everyone.
Yeah, we know that certain historians, poets in particular, are kind of commissioned by Augustus to write things for him. Okay. So people like Horace, and my mind's gone blank. Trying to think who else.
Not uncommon.
But Virgil and Horace and people like that, they are hired by Augustus to write things for him. So to put his point of view across.
Whereas
that he wants
if
people
Livy's trying to be a serious historian, he can't be that firmly in Augustus's pocket.
No.
But he does owe some of his fortune to Augustus.
And he's continued not being dead.
He's continued not being dead. That's a good way
You've got people like Cassius Dio, though, as well, are highly complimentary of Augustus.
Yeah.
In the way that they write. Very much so. Even more so, I would say, than Livy is.
Yeah.
It's really so blatant in Cassius Dio. And he is kind of writing for Augustus.
Right.
Yeah, so Livy acts as kind of a nice little foil, so if anyone was to accuse Augustus of just owning everyone and having everyone churn out propaganda, it's like, no, Livy's not. Look, Livy's over there. He's not mentioned me once. Have you, Livy? No.
He's more neutral, but he's not against him.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
I'm imagining there was no one who was against him because they're all...
They didn't last
very long.
Yeah.
They didn't last very long if they were.
No. And again, the other thing we should, as well as myth and reality, it's this idea of the significance of Romulus to the early stages of Rome. He's obviously significant, being that he created the city. That's the easy answer to give. If you get why was Romulus significant, he founded the city. Pretty hard to have the Romans without him. but all of the developments and the things he did, like the cult of Hercules and the patricians and the plebeians, by saying he did all this, it kind of justifies the order of things under the Romans, especially with, if you're going to say he was that great, he needs a kind of deified death.
Yeah.
If Augustus is using this to kind of, cement the status quo, were there massive social uprisings? Was there a yearning for change, or was this just nip it in the bud before it even started?
I think
there wasn't. No, I was going to say there wasn't really.
It's probably more everyone was just glad that they were in yet another civil war.
I was going to say, because it's the end of a long series of wars when Augustus becomes emperor, was people just like, oh, or they weren't like, no, we want more change.
No, they're like, can we just have a rest now?
Okay.
Yeah, and anyone that wasn't, that was important enough or powerful enough, he got rid of them in the prescriptions anyway.
Right, okay.
Literally just as he's coming into prominence. So by the time he gets there and you've got people like this that are writing all these things, he's already kind of cemented his position.
Right.
We should point out that prescriptions is a fancy way of saying killing
executions,
people.
yeah.
Didn't he also take all their money?
Yeah, in some cases. The other thing as well, which is really important about this idea of their first ruler becoming a god when he dies, and then obviously you've got the later link to Augustus being a god through Julius Caesar and also Romulus, is that it allows the Romans to think that they're special.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the Romans can say is, well, we're
descended from
gods, so we're really, really special, and that's something that kind of carries through. So the Romans have this idea of themselves as kind of a chosen people.
Self-justifies why they charge around Europe and North Africa, conquering people.
It's a little bit like the British mentality at the time of having the empire. I'm white, so I'm right. Theirs was more like...
Again, disclaimer, this is Helen paraphrasing British imperial thought. This is not what she thinks.
No, it's not. I'm not right about anything. And then...
Never a truer word spoken.
But yeah, the Romans just think that they're great because they're supposedly descended from the gods.
Well, they're racking them up, aren't they? So they're all descended from Aeneas, whose mum was Venus, god one.
God one.
Romulus's dad is Mars, the god of war, god two.
Ding!
And then, just to top it all off, Romulus becomes a god. God three,
And then you've got Julius Caesar, who's deified after he's died.
And then
Augustus, like, ding, 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 ding. So they've managed to get 5 gods, all that they can, all linked to each other, either through family relations or just myth or fate that's kind of brought them all together.
Or just, you see that sharp knife over there? Yeah, all right, you got.
Yeah, exactly. So they think that they're special because of this, but then that also helps maintain the idea that they have that they're special.
Yeah.
So it's like double-edged.
So there you have it, a quick look at the death and deification of Romulus. Thank you for listening. We hope this has been useful. Leave us a comment below, and until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.